Good morning. Hi everyone. Good afternoon, Akame. Brand new week. Hope you're all well. Give it a couple of minutes before we get started. Very nice to see you, Akame. Hey Vel, good morning. How was the pizza? Hey Goju, good morning. Hey BL. What a quiet morning it's been. Quite an afternoon it's been. Hey, Escade. Fuck. How you doing? For sure, Vel, for sure. Hey Kwabi, good morning. Hi Kwan. How are you doing? Good morning. 2 more minutes. I'll get going. Hey, Angel Case. Hope you all have been trading or did. Oh, no, wait. Let me start that again. Hope you all traded the NFP well. I thought that pound was going to have a nice move, retraced, did quite well on the euro dollar, and then everything else was just not really here, neither here nor there. Hey, Nick. Seems like it's been a while. Good to see you again. Hey, Lani. Good morning. If you're new to the session, do me that huge favor. Click that like button on YouTube. Click that little rocket ship button on TradingView. And if you haven't already, the link is there. Do join the Discord channel. I was going to launch something on Thursday, but I'll do it after the session. So I'll tell you guys more about it on the Discord channel. But make sure you join the Discord channel. You won't get news if you're not on it. Hey, Roland, how you doing? How's the Philippines doing? So you traded on the NFP, very good. Did well. Ayakami has a question on the NFP. Post it up. Post up the question. Good morning, PM. Alrighty, let's get started. So, brand new week. It is the 7th of August. Welcome back to another daily market analysis. This is where we do the fundamentals. We have a quick review of what happened last week. Non-farm payrolls for the US. Surprising number, so we'll do a quick review of that. Well, mixed number. We had a relatively bad non-farm payroll. We had an uptick in terms of unemployment numbers. So a slight downtick in unemployment numbers. So we had a mixed bag there. I'll tell you more about that shortly. With that, then we look at the technicals in terms of where price is, where it could head towards. We look for some possible trade setups. This is all done on the H1 time frame. So again, if you are new to the session, drop a message. Whichever platform you're on, drop a message, say hi. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're joining me from. I want to find out. I love to find out. And I do kind of remember you guys, right? I do remember you guys, especially if you had pizza over the weekend. I'll remember that. And also, if you can help me out, click that like and subscribe button on YouTube, on TradingView, on trading.live, wherever you are. Click that like and subscribe button. Links are there for the Discord channel, so do join up. There is something exciting going to be launched. And lastly, a lot of instructions out of the session, right? But lastly, if you do have any questions at any point in time, please feel free to put it into the chat. Let me know any trades you got onto, whether it worked out or did not work out. Put it into the chat. Let me know. I'll share with you my views on that. Okay. Hey Florence, how are you doing? With that, quick disclaimer, any information contained on this webinar should not be construed as advice and is presented as educational material only. The contents of this webinar is not intended to be a recommendation to trade a financial product, so please do your own due diligence. Your objectives, financial situation, and needs has not been considered, and you should consider its appropriateness to your circumstances. So with that, okay. So Ayakami did a scalp gold 10 pips to the upside. Could have gone a lot more, could have done something different. Talk about that. Okay, so last week, quick rewind. Last week, we spoke about this on Friday at 3. The non-farm payrolls, the US non-farm employment change numbers was released at 8:30 GMT plus 8. We were, I ran a very informal, brief informal survey. What is this? I ran a very brief informal survey with all the attendees here. We were guessing, right? Is non-farm employment change number going to be higher than expected? Was it going to be higher than expected, higher than previous, or was it going to be lower? You'd see here that it was 209K. It got revised down to 185. It got revised down to 185. At 209, they were expecting a 205. Right? There we go. At 209, they were expecting 205. Got revised down. It got released at 187. So worse than forecasted. Right? Worse than forecasted. And also were slightly around worse than the previous before the revision. After revision, it was around that same level. So it wasn't very good news in terms of the non-farm employment change data released for the US. But remember, if you cast your mind back to Friday, I was indicating that we might see unemployment and the non-farm employment change number being a little bit conflicting. Just didn't expect it this way. I thought this was going to be a higher number. Then I thought this was going to be a higher number, as in a bad number, right? So I thought this was going to be 3.6. Flipped it around, it came out as a bad non-farm employment change number and a slightly improved unemployment rate at 3.5%. Okay, so that came around. I'll tell you more about that. And then average hourly earnings for the US stayed at 0.4%. Slightly higher than expected, of the expectation at 0.3. So a real mixed bag in terms of data here, but it was the first Friday of the month. The focus was on the non-farm employment change number coming out at 187k. What we saw on the dollar index was on release, it was at 102 almost 102.60. Release of the data below, right, we were saying below 200, we would see this turn down towards that low of 101.95, right? It went as low as 101.78 or 76 for bouncing back up again. So this was our guess from last week. I think we did quite well in terms of the forecasting. So it was not above 220. Take that away. Take all that away. And then it was below 200. 187 was below 200. And it actually moved pretty much as we expected, right? Went up, tested this resistance before turning back down. So that was the news on release. 187, we saw a big push to the downside on the dollar index. Why it, come back to that again, why it came all the way down and then by midnight, GMT plus 8, it stopped at about 101.76 before bouncing back up through to today, was also because we had a bit of a mixed number here. Bad news here, but 3.5, slightly improving unemployment rate, and also the average hourly earnings at 0.4. That's not a very good news, because it is showing that wage inflation is increasing slightly in the US, and if wage inflation does keep increasing, then that's going to play a part in overall inflation, right? That means that the Fed might not be able to implement its pause on further rate hikes. They might have to look at September, another hike in September. So that's why we saw that drop in the dollar. Not a drop that broke below this 101.50 and continued down, right? If, for example, we saw 187, saw 3.5, and we saw 0.3, maybe we're going to see that continuation to the downside. But this was relatively short-lived before bouncing back up again. At the same time, we did have the Canadian unemployment change number. Look at that. It was 59.9, expected 24.6, came out at a negative 6.4k. The employment change number was terrible for the CAD. Unemployment rate came out as expected at 5.5, again 0.1% higher than previous. Because of that, not very good news for the Canadian dollar. What we actually saw was first move, I'll zoom in a bit, first move at $8 weakened, right? Dollar weakened because of the dollar index dropping. Then it started fluctuating, but it pushed up a lot more than, at a 2 o'clock time on Saturday morning. It pushed up a lot more than it actually did at the same time for the dollar, right? Because that's the impact of that weakness on the Canadian employment numbers, causing the Canadian dollar or the loonie to push back up towards that resistance of 1.3380, still fluctuating along that range right now. Okay, so that was the quick recap in terms of what happened on the non-farm payrolls, which was released on Friday last week. Any questions? I know Ayakami had a question before, right at the start. Ayakami, if you have a question, put it in. In the meantime, hello Kelvin, how are you doing? Hey Carsten, good morning. Hey FX Chief Priest, good to see you. Kami, all good? Or do you have something else that you need me to explain further? I'll give you 10 seconds to type in something. If not, then, and while we're waiting, help me out. Click that like and subscribe button. Here we go. Quite similar to the other live streams. Well, all live streams are pretty much the same. We do a recap, do a projection, we do a trade setup. If you come across any live stream that doesn't do a detailed recap and then a projection and then a setup, then you know why you on that live stream. Okay, so with that said, Ayakame is happy. Looking at today, I was in the Discord channel telling you guys, I've been dying to jump onto a trade. Nothing to trade right now so far. Well, since this morning to the stream right now is really because it has been quiet. It has been quiet. The Aussies are on a bank holiday, but it is not something observed by a lot of banks, right? Banks in most states do not observe this holiday. But there was lower, it did look like there was lower liquidity and volatility. Prices pretty much sat right across. Also, another impact from Friday's non-farm payroll, right? Typically what we see here, after a big move, right, it should rebound, and then on Monday morning it should drop again, right? If it was that consistently bad news for the US, it should drop again. But given that it rebounded and set right across this morning, we did see the dollar index continue slightly higher again, right, towards that 102.30 price level. And you would also see that for today, we do have the CAD. We do have the Canadians on a bank holiday as well, Civic Day. Again, banks in some provinces do not observe this holiday. We do expect some lower volatility, and you see that we don't have any big major news to be released for today, right? No big major news to be released. So I would say be extra cautious about your trades today. After Friday's big move, or sudden move, I anticipate that we might see we did see that retracement before a possible continuation back down. Now the question is whether this is the end of the retracement, right? So the question is whether this is the end of the retracement, or could we see it test higher before turning back down again. I'll tell you more about that shortly. After that, tomorrow, again, not much else all the way through to Wednesday, where we're going to have some news. All right. So for today and tomorrow, how I look at this as we might see some trending scenarios. Most likely after completion of the current retracements, we should see some continuation of trend. So that's what I'll be looking out for, knowing that we don't have any major news to be released, but you do want to be a bit careful of lower liquidity, more erratic volatility released or to be ahead. So back to this, looking at the dollar index. This away, put that there. Okay. The question now is, looking at this, it came back up, right? So that brief move to the downside, well, not brief, that news, the NFP move to the downside, we've seen the dollar retrace back towards that 61.8 FIB retracement level. Right, we've seen it retrace back to this level. Go. And it looks like it's struggling to break or has struggled to break that resistance, the 1.8 pip retracement resistance level, and looking like it's going to push back down. With that, what I would also say is that we have a brief upward trend line on the dollar index. Take this away, and I would push this down towards 101.50 as a support level. Right? Why this point is really considering, this is in consideration of this tail here, how the body is here, then again that tail there. So I'm looking at that as a support level of 101.50. Resistance was there. I think we can move it up here. Okay, so I'll be happy for my resistance at 102.80. So looking at this, I would anticipate that in the next 40, we are at 3:20 GMT plus 8 right now. So in the next 40 minutes for this hour, I will be either looking for it to stay here or break lower. It might stay about there. Next candle, break lower. So if it fails to break below 61.8, I'll be looking for it to break down from that trend line towards the downside with the next support at 101.50. Okay, so this is the 7th of August. We're looking for the dollar index to reject 102.30, which is the 1.8 level. Okay, break trend line, bullish trend line to trade lower. I don't think it will get all the way down to 101.50. I don't think it'll get all the way down to 101.50. That if it breaks below 102, then maybe. Okay, let's just say this. Trade lower with 101.50 support level. Okay, so main thing I'm looking at is it resisted at 1.8. I'm looking for it to break below 102. If it does break below 102, then we could see further downside. Ultimately, we're looking at the news. We don't see a lot of big news events. I don't see why it should drop a lot unless member Harker or member Bowman says something. As a Philadelphia Business Journal, I don't think it's going to do too much. Together with Fed Listens event, again, not probably going to move it too much. Okay, so I would say that it's likely to come back down, especially if it breaks below this trend line with 102 and 101.50 as a support. With 102 and 101.50 support level. All right. So with that, then looking at the Kiwi dollar. Right, Kiwi dollar actually did very nicely. Take this away for now. We were talking about this when we would consider a break to the upside. At the news release, right, we saw this push up before turning back down. It did not go all the way down. Right, did not go all the way down. So if you did get into this trade has gone up and turned back down, you might have done 20 pips, but you would have, okay, if it was just based on a setup, you might have done this trade and made 20 pips. But also understanding that this was the news, right? We did this as a news analysis. It shot up, right? It shot up. So you might not even have entered this trade on the Kiwi dollar to the downside, realistically speaking. At this point, we do have this as support. Take that away. Anticipating that dollar weakness to continue. Right, anticipating that dollar weakness to continue to the downside, I would say that the Kiwi dollar could again trade up to this point. Right, could again trade up to that 0.6140 resistance level. And I think it's going to sit there. I don't think it's going to break too like significantly. I think it's going to sit there. What you can prepare for if we do see the dollar index breaking lower strongly than 0.6160, stop loss about 35-40 pips, take profit 90 pips to the upside towards that previous swing high at 6258. Okay, so what I anticipate is going to come up to this resistance level, could hold it together with that trend line, but if these two confluence don't hold, then we're going to see the Kiwi dollar break to the upside, possibly towards a new high, right? And then we might see that reversal come around. So 6160, 40 pip stop loss, 90 pip take profit. A bit speculative, but that could, depending on how the dollar index does. So 0.6160, stop loss 40, take profit 90 to the upside. Okay. Then onto the Aussie. Very similar to what we saw on the Kiwi. We were anticipating that before the news it will come up, test this level, we were anticipating a stronger dollar. Did not happen, right? So it actually pushed back up, so it did not happen. Take that away. Aussie is a little bit more tricky than the Kiwi dollar, right? So, well, not a little bit, it's a lot more tricky than the Kiwi dollar, because I do see this forming up as well. I see that forming on the Aussie. Then with that, take away this area. With that showing, I think that we could, I'm going to be very cautious and not suggest that we could see it spike up. We do have the Kiwi dollar with a possible spike up. I feel that the Aussie just seems to have more downside potential. What I would be looking out for on the Aussie might be a test and a reject to the downside. Right, so I look for it to test, reject, and then break that trend line back down. So in this case, I would be looking for selling opportunity 575, stop loss very tight, about 30 pips. Take profit could go to 60 pips, just back down towards that previous low. Okay, so I'll look for that. In fact, if it does test higher and break back down, You could even be looking at a bit higher at 6580. I like the stop loss at 30, just above that high. And your take profit will still be at 60 there. Test, reject, come back down, sell down. 6580, 30 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit. Sell 6580, very similar picture we saw to the downside. Okay, so again, remember, it's either or. It's either looking to buy the Kiwi up or looking to sell the Aussie down. If you entered both, you're going to miss out on, not going to make money. Okay, so I'm looking, this might be, how I look at this is this might be a bit faster, right? Dollar index dropping, we might see the Kiwi dollar push up. Then if the dollar index comes down, test this level and bounce maybe, or test a little bit and bounce, then we might see the Aussie come back into play, turning back down again. All right, so it's either or on the Kiwi and Aussie. EE72 says, wow, how are you doing? Hi, Jamil. Good morning. Alrighty. Then on to the US yen. This was a little bit disappointing, right? When I saw the dollar index weakening, I thought, great, this would play to our benefit where we were looking at dollar weakness. We were looking to sell the US yen down from 141.70. It came, it broke down to, at that news release, it came down to 101.70, did not close below, and then it just fluctuated along that point. It only broke at early this morning, which this setup would have been invalidated already because that was a news kind of setup. So it did not happen. We take that away. But with that said, I do think that, right, so it came very close to that 50%. If we did that, 38, if we took the total range, we might still see it as 38.2 having been supported. Okay, so took that full range. So what I would say is that, we're still, true, it's disappointing. Okay, good, Robbie clarified that it was a US yen that was disappointing. Not the analysis, the US yen, right? So expecting the dollar index possibly to trade lower. If it does break that trend line, then we should be looking at the US yen trade lower as well. Caps off, okay, and you can see that equal low when it broke, now forming that high. So interim level there. Still looking for it to break down. In this case, I would say dollar weakness, if the dollar weakness were to continue, 141.60, so below 141.60, stop loss 50 pips, take profit down to that 61.8 level at about 110 pips to the downside. Could even go to 120 to the downside. A lot more waiting to do here because we do need it to turn down, break that support or resistance support, and then below that 38.2. So it just needs to close below. So 141.60, stop loss 50, take profit 120. So 141.60, 60, stop loss 50, quite wide. So just remember to manage your risk there on the, especially on the US yen, right? It wouldn't make sense in this scenario to think about having it nearer because at 30 pips could work. but I do want it above that 142, slightly above that 142 level, right? That's why I'm looking at it at 50 pips. And I like the way the price action is playing out right now. Okay, that's fair. I like that. Okay, I'm happy with that one. Any questions so far? All good? Let me know. Then onto the US pound dollar. I'll tell you what I did on a pound dollar. So pound dollar, it did play out. We did have our inverted head and shoulders playing out. We did have that neckline. When I was trading this during the news, so when I saw the news being released, weaker dollar, we saw the pound dollar shoot up. I'll try and find where I entered that trade, you guys. Right, so this is what happened. So the news got released, right, at 8:30. You can see at this is how you could trade the news on a smaller time frame. 8:30 news got released. You'll see that at that point got released, and then we saw a spike and a push to the upside. You don't even have to rush into that trade, right? We took time for this to play out. By the time it pushed up, then I started to look to the upside, right? I started to buy it to the upside, knowing that we had the next setup there. Okay, so this was a trade I did. Inverted head and shoulder breaking above the neckline. I got in at about that point, just above that high. So 1.2735 if I'm not wrong. A little bit early, right? And then I was thinking that this breaking above inverted head and shoulder, I was thinking it was a bit of an earlier trade. Could see this push to the upside. I was thinking, great, 140 pips during the non-farm payrolls would be fantastic. Thank you very much. It shot up. It came to about that point, that 40, 50, about 50 pips point. Then I thought, okay, I'm going to move my stop loss. I can't do this, but I moved it up to secure some profit. I didn't put it to break even. I put it to about 10, 15 pips up, right? I put it to about 15 pips up. Then the next thing, I left it, and then the next thing it came back down and hit my stop loss at plus 15. So not very happy on the pound dollar. I was thinking that this was going to push all the way back up. 140 pips, I was thinking I only got about 10% of that at 15 pips after the pound dollar retraced. Okay, so another reminder, don't get super greedy during a news event. It does happen to the best of us. You have to be a little bit greedy when you're trading, but also be able to secure some profits, right? It's unrealistic to tell you guys to say trade with no emotions, right? It's more like trade with managed emotions. Lucky or happy that at least I did five that I did put it at 15 pips, right? Because if not, I would have had break even. It would be even more painful. Or if I did just put like a 30 pip or 20 pip stop loss, I'd have even lost money early this morning or late this afternoon. Okay, so didn't do too badly, didn't do fantastic, but didn't do too badly on a pound dollar. So it didn't trigger our trade as well, so I'll take that one away. Catch the move, but not to maximize. It's hard. It's hard to know about maximizing a move. The only time you know to maximize a move is after it has happened, right? Everyone's gonna sit here and tell you like, oh, I maximized on this move. They can only tell it to you after it has happened. Just be a little bit more cautious with that. At this point on the daily time frame, I want to revise that little bit as my trend line. That still works. My channel. So it still looks like it's supporting. So you can see on the daily time frame on the pound dollar, tested lower, failed to break, bouncing back up. Could take this away, and it's right at that resistance level. So I had a question from Rivdi, who messaged me on Discord asking about the Bank of England decision. Does this mean that we're not going to see further rate hikes from the Bank of England? That's quite possible, or what they've been conveying is that message. But overall, the movements on the pound dollar is not going to be just based on the Bank of England, or not just based on the pound. It's also going to be based on how the dollar index performs. So now looking at this, I do think that, based on the daily time frame, we should see this push back up. It does need to break above 1.2760, or at best 1.28 will give us good confirmation. On the H4 time frame, still a bit of the inverted head and shoulder forming. There's a neckline at 1.28. Right, so you can still see a little bit of a head and shoulder with a neckline at 1.28. Because of that, back to the H1 time frame, 1.28 is right there. I would say do nothing on the pound dollar unless it breaks above 1.28. Right, it only maximizes to TP. Depends on where you set your TP at as well. All right, so I'd say 1.2810. Take profit 70 pips to the upside towards the next previous high there. Stop loss, I would say just below that neckline at about 25 pips. Right, so if it breaks up, triggers the trade, it could even look at this at 30. 30 would be safer. Right, I think it's going to hit trigger around here before going back up if the dollar does continue weakening. And this does have that confluence on the daily time frame. You can see that, right, it's going to come up to this point. The rejection of these levels could see a push back up. On the H4 time frame, the inverted head and shoulder, breaking the neckline, we're going to see it come back up. Then on the H1 time frame, found a bit of a support here. We could see it break above that resistance and go up. So it does seem to work along all the different time frames. So I'm a little bit more confident on this, and I'm not expecting that 130 pips anymore. Looking at about 70 pips to the upside. So 1.2810, stop loss 30, take profit 70. Got your question there, Sparkhead, about gold. I will get to that shortly. So 1.2810, stop loss 30, take profit 70 on pound dollar. Then let me tell you about the one I did really well on. The euro dollar. Okay, the euro dollar, we were looking at it consolidating along that resistance turned support level, right? Through our discussions on Friday, we looked at it and we saw, yes, dollar strength, rejection of that trend line. We'd be looking for this to trade down. We also highlighted that we could, if it does break up at 1.0970, look to buy it up towards that resistance of 1.10, almost 1.1050, right? And I did that. So the news came out, pushed up, got into that to the upside. I did very well. I didn't get too greedy on this. So I did close out at that, in fact, that 65 pip level. Right, close out at 65 pips on the euro dollar. So overall, still did very well, very happy on the non-farm payrolls because of the euro dollar. Did you get into the euro dollar? Let me know. With that, then you can see that that move, again, euro dollar finding a bit of a rejection along 61.8, looking like it's pushing back up. Very similar view to what we see, or inverse view of what we see on the dollar index, right? 61.8 pushing back down. Euro dollar 61.8. Why did I delete that? Oh, 61.8 pushing back up. Okay, so could be looking for this to push back up. But what I'll tell you is that between the euro, which is sitting at 1.0988, between the support level and the resistance level, is right in the middle. I kind of prefer the pound dollar for it to break up, push higher. All right, so euro dollar, I think that can take this away. Okay, I think that euro dollar, I can do Aussie yen as well. Okay, euro dollar, I would say I'll look for it to come back up towards that resistance of 1.1050. Then I want to see what happens here. Okay, so it might not be a today kind of trade. Today will just be hands off on the euro. Let's see what happens. I'm looking for it to climb towards 1.1050. If it breaks up, great, we can buy it up. If it breaks back down, depending on how the dollar index is performing, we could look to sell it down. So in this case, what you'll be looking at, 1.1060, take profit, 70 pips, stop loss 30, 25. Then you could sell down 1.1030, stop loss no more than 30 pips, take profit. Even if we just came down to this point, will be 55. Go 80 pips down and then make a decision at this point. Okay. Thank you, Kwan. All right. So with that, I think that's both that opportunity. Okay, we say that euro dollar, it would be a wait for potential react for price climb to 1.1050, potential reaction, right? We could be looking to buy at 1.1060. Stop loss would be 25, take profit at 70. 25, take profit at 70. Or we could all sell at 1.1, or we could look to sell at 1.1030, stop loss 30, take profit 8. All right, so I wouldn't rush into anything on the euro right now. I want to see what happens if it does climb up towards that level, what happens at that point. If it doesn't push down lower, then maybe we could be looking at further downside. If that plays out, I will tell you more about it in the Discord channel. Then, as Vijay is asking on the Aussie yen. So we looked at the Aussie dollar, might test up a little bit before pushing back down. Looking at the US yen, dollar weakness could see this push back down. Then looking at the Aussie yen, it was long ago, take that away. Still within that range. I think that expecting the Aussie dollar to push up a little bit before turning down. I would be looking for a similar pattern. I'll be looking for it to test before heading back down, thinking that the yen could push lower. The rejection, I would say Aussie yen, I'll be looking for rejection of that 94 level, 94 round number resistance level. Right, then if it does push down, below 93.80, stop loss 35 pips, take profit even to the recent low would be about 80 pips to the downside. That's my view on the Aussie yen there, PJ. Alrighty, next up, US Swiss franc. Joshua was sharing this in the Discord channel. Unfortunately, I think he got in a little bit early. Alright, he got in a little bit early. He did see his, just I think an hour ago, spiked up, hit his stop loss, but now it's turning back down. So Joshua, if you're watching, it's happening now, but I think it's just a little bit early on the US Swiss franc. Why is it turning down? Also because of that dollar index. Right in the middle again, I dislike the US Swiss franc for this is because every time I'm looking at it, it seems like every time I'm looking at it, it is right in the middle of that support and resistance level. Expecting that dollar weakness to continue. Expecting a continuation of that dollar weakness. Could see this come down as well. Looking for it to break the trend line, break the support. I would wait it out, right? Also because I'm expecting not, or rather I'm not expecting a lot of liquidity and volatility for today. So I would say wait it out. Don't feel like you have to rush into a trade today. If it does break below that support, then maybe it could look to sell down. This is very near. This is 20 pips away. Just that whole area there. I would say that the safest thing you can do on the US Swiss franc would be that. Right? That would be the safe, well, not guaranteed, disclaimer still applies, but why I'm looking at this is this whole thing becomes an area. So 0.8660 stop loss could do 30 pips. Take profit almost 100 to the downside. Ultimately, is I want it to break below. I think that if the dollar does weaken, we could see this trade down, but I want it to break below this points here. Right, no point getting into a trade at this level here. It does need to break below before we could see it trade further. So 0.8660, stop loss 30, take profit 100. Sell 0.8660, stop loss 30, take profit 100. Momo favor, I just did the euro dollar, but since you said good morning, tell me where you're joining us from, and I'll do a quick recap of the euro dollar. All right. I'll get back to that. Tell me where you're joining us from, and I'll get back to that. Onto the euro dollar. US CAD, right? So US CAD has been, well, we saw the employment, the bad employment number for the Canadians, which is why we're looking at further upside. We saw the CAD push strongly to the upside as it sits along this resistance level of 1.3380. I would say that the previous analysis still holds. 1.34. Been a long day. 1.34, 35 pips stop loss, 60 pip take profit to the upside. But that's anticipating dollar strength, or anticipating that the Canadian weakness is going to offset the dollar strength. Right? So I think that, again, this point, I would like to say that you have two ideas here. The 1.3360 stop loss, 30 pips, take profit almost 60 pips to the downside. It's just going to sit there. I feel that the US CAD is going to sit there because we're not seeing very clear directions yet. If this weakens, then we're going to see this push down, right? And then it breaks that trend line. We're going to see further downside. So 1.3360, 30 pip stop loss, 60 pip take profit. If it pushes up, then we have that. But yeah, I think this is the more likely scenario. So 1.3360, stop loss 30, take profits. We're looking to sell this down. 1.3360, stop loss 30, take profit 60. Okay. Again, just a big reminder to everyone, if you're joining at different times, you missed out on some points, I'm happy to repeat. Also remember that this summary sheet is posted. This summary sheet is posted after every session, so you can always check back on the summary sheet. You can always check back on the stream as well, and also on YouTube. It's also available on YouTube as well. Okay, and if you haven't already, just do me that big favor, wherever that subscribe button is, follow. So then, looking at the euro dollar for Momo. There we go. Looking for it to found a bit of a rejection. I like how it's rejected at that 61.8 level from Friday's retracement level. Dollar weakness, I'm anticipating for the euro dollar to push back up. I'm looking for a reaction, push up towards that 1.1050 level. Looking for a reaction along this point. I don't feel like you should be rushing into a trade now, is because it is right in the middle of that support and resistance level. That's it. This is on the H1 time frame. If you feel like you have to trade the euro dollar, then you could be looking at it on a smaller time frame. But we do this every day, so I'll rather wait for it to come to that resistance. If it comes to that resistance, and look for a possible setup. All right, hope that answers your question there, Momo. And for FX, my idea on a pound dollar again is looking for it to go back up, break above that resistance, inverted head and shoulder with that big neckline there, right? So looking to buy it up 1.2810, stop loss 30, take profit 70. Okay. I see a question there, Mar Valley. I'll get to that shortly. Let me do gold. Right, so gold was expected, right? The dollar weakened, so we were thinking that dollar would strengthen. We'll see gold break the 1930 support and trade significantly lower. Given that the dollar weakened. Given the dollar weakened, we saw gold push up. Still, however, remains within that 1930 and 1945 resistance or resistance and support level. Now it's consolidating. It's again back to this range. Now it's still within, back to within this narrow range of 1938 and 1930. Think that looking at the way the dollar finds a little bit of support on that trend line, you might see this consolidate here. But overall, I'm thinking that we could see this breakout towards that support. I'm not going to be thinking that we're going to see a huge move on gold at this point. I think if it comes down to 1930, we might see it bounce and remain within this range. So 1936.60, looking to trade down to 1930. Right? Gold, we're looking for this to trade down to 1930. This is on some retracement on a dollar. So what will work very nicely, or what will look very nice, it comes down to 1930 and then bounce back up again. So just remaining within that range. You're most welcome there, Goju. So that's gold. And then our belly says on the Aussie weekly, time frame, I see a wave 1 going up to wave 2. Okay, on daily, I see a bullish pattern. And now from point D going up, please correct me. Mar Valley, I'm going to disappoint you a little bit and tell you that I'm terrible on Elliott waves. So couldn't give you a view in terms of the wave. Completed Gartley pattern on H1 that's formed going up. Yeah, see, the thing is, Aussie it's consolidating there. I'm not used to the weekly time frame. Looking at the daily, it is showing a little bit of an upside push. But given how much it's dropped, as much as it could climb back up, I'll be a little bit careful. This is on the daily time frame, right? You would see that it needs to break above 23.6. And it needs a lot of reason why we should see the Aussie push back up. Need a lot more reason. For example, either the dollar's seeing significant weakness, or whether we're going to see some change in policy on the Aussie. Even on rate hikes from the Aussie, we don't see a big push upside. So what I'm afraid of is this. Why do I have so many lines there? Is this tails here on the Aussie? Right. So typically, I would say yes, we are seeing 3 moves higher, but a big push, and then there's a bit of a doji push, and then it's a bit of a rejection. Now looking like it's forming another rejection. Be a lot more careful for this on the Aussie. However, I would like to see it drop to about that point at 6465. Then I will consider whether it's going to bounce back up or not. Okay. So I hope I answered your question there, Mar Belly. Don't think I did answer in terms of the Elliott wave, but I'm not full bottle on the Elliott wave, so I won't try and make it up. Right. I think that I think that the price on pound would retrace to 1.2725. 725, so it's about there. Before continues to move higher, do you think the price would retrace lower? Quite possibly. Dollar index is bouncing a little bit. I think that 1.2725 is reasonable, right? So it could do that and then bounce back up. But if you look at this in the scheme of things, it's really only about a 20 pip move at the very most. Why you wouldn't want to try and take advantage of the 20 pip move is because it could just stop anywhere, right? It could just go to one a bit lower as well. So I would say I'll be hands off on this. I'll wait for it to bounce, well, to react, bounce. I'll be only looking to buy it up. If it does break down, right? If it does come down and break below, then you might even be looking to sell it down if we see significant dollar strength come back into play. So because again, not a lot of news today and into tomorrow as well. Just doing a quick check of the news. Yep. It's all going to be highly dependent on what happens here on the dollar. Right? If this pushes up above 61.8, climbing that away for now, right? If it does this and breaks above, then we're going to have other opportunities as well. We could be looking to buy, right? So to sell the Aussie down. The dollar strength is going to cause the Aussie to come down. We could look to sell the Aussie down. Pound dollar breaking, could on some avenue look at that. Euro dollar needs to break below, could trade it down. There are other opportunities. US cap might bounce up as well. So right now it's just a little bit of waiting for this to develop. A little bit early into the hour, I would like to see this sit around there and then slowly break and turn down. At least I think we'll see some continuation of trend, which would make it a little bit easier to trade, I believe. Okay, very good questions, everyone. Thank you for that. Any further questions? Probably not a day that I would leave the stream running today. It's just a little bit slow and bounce around. So if you do have any questions, please let's take our discussions beyond this session into the Discord channel. Do help me out, like and subscribe this stream, this video. Check out the other videos as well. And if you're not on Discord, well, I'll see you on Discord. If you're not on Discord, then I'll see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. GMT plus 8 for the daily market analysis again. For now, trade well, trade safe. Bye-bye. Thanks, Mama Belly. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, BL. Thanks, Vel.